Previously on Cancerous Commentaries.
I'm Alex the Critic, and believe it or not, I'm actually not done dissecting the extremes of identity politics yet. Tune in next time when I debunk a stupid video about blackwashing that was uploaded by a YouTuber that I've been meaning to cover for quite a while. I'll see you guys then.
And now, the moderately entertaining conclusion.
Yes, no, maybe. I don't know. Can you repeat the question? You're not the boss of me now. You're not the boss of me now. You're not the boss of me now, and you're not so big. You're not the boss of me now. You're not the boss of me now. You're not the boss of me now, and you're not so big. Life is unfair.
Hey everybody, Alex the Critic here, and it's once again time for me to rip apart a stupid video that I found on the internet. This is Cancerous Commentaries. About a month or two ago, I covered a video uploaded by the political news channel Rebel HQ that accused a pop culture commentator named Ryan Kennel of racism over comments that he made regarding the morality of black and white characters in the comic book movie The Batman. Riddled with inconsistencies, double standards, and some outright lies, Rebel HQ's video was a prime example of the toxicity inherent in identity politics, which is a political ideology which believes that race is the only factor that one should consider when broaching discussions about any given socio-political topic. However, there are far more dangerous videos that promote identity politics that have been released on this degenerate wasteland known as the internet, and I'm here today to respond to one of them. That's right, to close out this little dive that I've taken into the world of identity politics, I'm going to be responding to a video made by a pop culture commentator and media reviewer named Veridis Joey titled "Blackwashing Doesn't Exist, Why Black Edits Aren't Racist." First though, let's cover the context behind the video.
Those of you who browse through the works of, or are affiliated with, the art community on Twitter might already know what Blacktober is. For those of you who don't, however, here's a brief explanation. Blacktober is a yearly event which takes place during the month of October wherein, according to the event's website, quote, black and mixed black creatives, parentheses, regardless of their pigment, are celebrated and uplifted with their creative skill of choice. Think Black History Month, only instead of learning about the important contributions black people have made to American society, you're scrolling through art of varying quality that was drawn by black people on your Twitter timeline. That's all well and good, except for the fact that a good chunk of the art that's made and promoted during Blacktober are blackwashed versions of characters from all manners of media, primarily anime. Why is that a problem? Well, because many of these same people are vehemently against whitewashing and decry it as racist whenever it occurs. This, in turn, led to people posting artwork of whitewashed characters, with their argument being that if it's okay for black artists to blackwash characters in their fan art, then there shouldn't be any problem with artists of other races doing the same thing. At this point, you would think that nobody in their right mind would attempt to explain away the logical and moral inconsistency inherent in supporting blackwashing, since supporting blackwashing is a pretty backwards-ass position to take in the first place.
That didn't stop Veridis Joey from trying. In his video on blackwashing, Joey made some very dumb and very racist arguments in defense of it, which is what I'm here to debunk. So, without further ado, let's get started. Huh? What was that?
Alex, you silly son of a bitch.
Akumu?
Who else would it be?
Well, what the hell are you doing here?
I swear you said something about me taking forever on my video. Or was it something else along those lines?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Is that so? Let me jog your memory.
And lastly, one on Veridis Joey's video on blackwashing.
Which Akumu was supposed to have tackled himself, but that asshole's even lazier than I am. So I guess I gotta do it instead. Alright, so I called you lazy. What of it?
I'm not about to sit here and let some Mr. Enter wannabe talk shit about me, so if you want to cover Joe's video, I'll do so with you, since I was too lazy to do it myself.
But I can't have you on my channel. My audience won't appreciate your unapologetic, politically incorrect brand of commentary. I'll lose all my subscribers.
Well, it's either that, or I could blow up your house with the explosives that I rigged around it.
What? You did not rig my house with explosives.
You really want to test me?
Editor, roll the footage.
You're a wise man.
Do you want to hear like stuff about like racism and hypocrisy and like fake gotcha moments?
It's funny, because this whole video is filled with racism, hypocrisy, and fake gotcha moments.
Cosmo, bro, do you care like at all?
Leave the poor dog alone and just start the video, Joey.
I'm about to dance this shit right.
Alright, new story time. So the other day I opened Twitter, obviously never a good idea, and I saw a user getting their ass beaten in quote tweets for posting this image and many others liking on their account, and these are obviously bait. Some of you couldn't assume I have common sense and decided to tell me I fell for the bait when responding, when all I did was say ew. No shit, it's bait. They want attention and I decided to make fun of them for Twitter likes.
So, in other words, you fell for the bait and gave this Twitter user the attention they were looking for, but you're now trying to frame it as though you didn't fall for the bait? I see I still have much to learn in the art of bullshitting my audience.
Clearly what they did here was turn Luz from the house, the brown-skinned Dominican American, into a flavorless, undercooked, for lack of a better word, lent leech.
Nigga, get the fuck up, man!
What exactly do you mean by that, Joey? Because it seems pretty racist to me to refer to white people as flavorless and undercooked lint leeches. Imagine if we used that kind of language to refer to black characters.
By blackwashing this character, the artist has made them a stupid and violent ashtray.
Something tells me you wouldn't like that.
Not only did they do it to fuck with people, they did it to prove a point. A point I see so many times that I'm here to dismantle and disprove. In multiple tweets, they expressed how black people aren't oppressed and that racism works both ways. Clearly, from those statements alone, this wasn't made for shits and giggles and to make niggas mad. The nigga in question did this with reasoning behind it.
I mean, you still don't know that for sure. The guy making those points in follow-up tweets doesn't necessarily mean that he's being genuine. He could very much still be trying to bait you into making an angry response. Now, if you can show me instances of the guy making those exact same arguments in response to other Twitter users on completely unrelated threads, then you'd be proving that these are genuine beliefs the guy holds. Without that evidence, however, you still haven't debunked the claim that you got baited.
Hey, I want you to take a look at these two edits. Although at their basic objective core, both characters having their race being altered in an edit, they aren't the same, and they ain't comparable for multiple reasons.
Alright, Joey, I'm ready to get into your reasoning. Let's go.
These images are not the same, and I'm gonna explain why.
Yes, Joe. You already said you were gonna explain yourself. The floor is yours. Go ahead.
And you probably guessed, but I'm finna get into that right now.
Stop telling us that you're gonna get into that, and just get into it already.
But before that, we got a word from our sponsors.
Really? You're gonna do the fucking ad read right now? Fuck it, let's just skip to the part where his video resumes. Maybe he'll elaborate on his point then.
I'm about to dance this shit right.
Alright, now back to it. I don't know if anyone told you, but this month is the month that the art community calls Blacktober. A lot of you non-social media niggas probably are unaware as to what that is, so allow me. Black artists and editors have started to draw themselves into the things that they love. And by that I mean drawing them as black or their faves as black. A lot of people obviously did not like that, and with that came a lot of harassment thrown at said artists and editors. Blacktober is a month-long prompt thing that was created to combat all the hate and malice with fun. And people have a problem with this whole movement because they think it's racist and say it's black blackwashing, seeing as people truly believe other people are canonically changing the races of these characters, or at least trying to.
I don't think anyone was arguing that these artists were canonically changing the race of these characters. If Joey's assertion here was true, you'd think he'd be able to show us at least one screenshot of somebody making that argument. The reason why these works are seen as racist is because it seems as though these black artists aren't able to relate to or celebrate these characters unless they are also black. I mean, would it really be that devastating to draw original black characters, or to draw black characters that already exist?
In an attempt to try to educate the people who were making these edits, people decided to do the exact opposite to prove a point.
It's pretty telling how he'll show screenshots of people posting white edits on Twitter in order to, quote, prove a point, but he won't show screenshots of anybody who was arguing that artists who blackwash characters are attempting to canonically change the race of those characters. It's almost like that's not the argument people were actually making against this shit.
Like I said earlier, these two images aren't the same and never will be. Now it's time for me to explain that.
Jesus fucking Christ. When are you going to explain this? 4 times now, he's told us we're wrong and that he's gonna elaborate.
Although I think I'll get a little more comfortable first. I'm saying I'm going to do the cool green screen thing again because I like doing it and it's cool and it's time effective. Yeah.
Jesus H. Christ, how much padding is in this goddamn video? We are 4.5 minutes in, and we've yet to get a single argument as to why blackwashing doesn't exist and why black edits aren't racist.
First off, one was created positively, as you can see from the quality of the edit, while the other was created in retaliation of the other.
Why does that even matter?
Now you might say, why does that even matter?
Oh my god, you guys, Veridis Joey is in my head!
Well, here's a comparison. There's this teeny little organization, I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's called Black Lives Matter. And then there's All Lives Matter. People who say ALM opposed to BLM or supporting a movement that was made in retaliation of a movement made for the support and giving of voices to black people. A movement solely made for us to be treated as equal. Both still movements at their core, but one movement is in retaliation of the other.
Okay, so this argument fails for 2 reasons. 1, an organization being formed in response to the forming of another organization has no bearing on whether or not the ideals it supports are good or bad. You'll notice that Veridis Joey didn't go into any detail as to why All Lives Matter is such a contemptuous movement. He just says it's bad because it was made in retaliation to Black Lives Matter, which leads me to the second reason why this argument is dumb. Veridis Joey is just assuming that Black Lives Matter is a good organization in spite of all the rioting and looting that they were responsible for throughout the summer of 2020, as well as the fact that the owners of the organization didn't actually use a lot of the money that was raised to fix any of the issues that were affecting the black community, but instead used that money for their own personal gain. I'm sure the Nazis thought that they were giving support and a voice to disenfranchised German workers in the 20s and 30s too, Joey. But that doesn't mean that they're a good organization.
Simplified things, say we're on a playground, right? We're also kids, we're not weirdos. And so there's a kid who falls down and he breaks his leg. And so he's asking everybody, somebody call help, my fucking leg's broken, oh my god. And then there's another kid who's on the playground who's not hurt, who's like, well, what about my leg? Diverging the attention from the root problem, the kid with the broken leg. Also in the scenario, the kid with the not broken leg talking about what about his leg is really popular. He's really popular, he's always been popular for like forever. And the one time when an issue or a subject is not about him, he's trying to make it about himself. Do you see how that's fucked? If you don't get that, I think this video isn't for you. I really don't want to follow deaf ears. You probably should go like right now.
You know the video is going to be fantastic when the first analogy he uses for his argument is a shitty political meme, ripped straight from Reddit. But remember, diversity isn't political, unless you're denying blackwashing.
This analogy is fucking stupid, and I'm going to explain why. The kid with the not broken leg is being used by Joey as a stand-in for All Lives Matter. However, the people that support All Lives Matter aren't trying to ignore the issues that impact black people. They're making the point that those issues also impact people of other races. Let's use police brutality as an example. Did you know that police brutality actually affects white people more often than it does black people?
And before someone says that's because there's more white people, that's the point. Think about it. If black people are still being disproportionately targeted by the police in a country that still prioritizes white people, why are there more unarmed white people killed by the police? Police brutality isn't a one-race issue.
That other popular kid does have a broken leg, but you're choosing to ignore him because having nuance when it comes to addressing certain issues would be very counterintuitive to your race hustling.
Alright, now let's bring it back. I talked about this before conveniently in the video right before this one, but black edits exist primarily because of the lack of representation of black animated characters in animated media. And if you say, we got plenty of representation,
Black edits exist primarily because of the lack of representation of black animated characters in animated media, he says, and then shows images only from anime, a Japanese media that America just has an obsession with. From saying animated media to focusing on anime. Anime is not a United States media, and Japan could give a fuck less for our opinions. Black people aren't even 1% of their fucking population. They make up maybe at best 0.015%.
Stop the cap. Most of the mainstream anime that are out and talked about right now don't feature accurate black representation or black representation at all. And trust me, we're thankful for what we're getting right now, but that's now. For decades, we were getting this or nothing.
Once again, the reason why black representation is the way it is in anime is because black people make up a very small percentage of the demographics of Japan. Wouldn't this be like white Americans getting upset that there isn't enough white representation in African media? What right do we have to demand that foreign artists include characters of a certain race in their works in order to pander to a group of people that aren't even a part of their native demographic? I don't know about you, but that kind of mindset sounds like cultural colonialism to me. Like, if this is really that much of an issue, why don't you just create your own mangas and animes with black characters?
I'm about to dance this shit right.
But because of this lack of characters in our race, we had to latch on to characters that weren't even representative of our own race.
Aw, isn't that just awful? How oppressed you must be to suffer such an indignity. It's such a tragedy to have to relate to a character that isn't your race.
Man, could you imagine how many people would call a white person racist for making that exact same point? Wow, this character doesn't look exactly like me, so there's no way in hell that I could possibly relate to them.
Therefore, over the years, we've made headcanons and AUs of these characters where they are black. Notice I said the headcanon and AU. Contrary to popular belief, we don't actually believe these characters are black. I know Piccolo's a fucking Namekian. Everyone knows Piccolo's a Namekian. We just like to think, what if?
Ignoring how, once again, Joey isn't providing us with any evidence of people making this argument, here's my question. Why do you need to blackwash these characters at all? Why can't you just draw original characters, or characters that are already black? If you are going to defend blackwashing though, then don't get pissy when people decide to whitewash characters, because by embracing the former, you are saying that the latter is also perfectly acceptable. Either they're both okay, or neither of them are.
I'm about to dance this shit right.
Shit, headcanoning shouldn't even be that much of a problem. I've seen people do a lot more outside of race. Some niggas headcanon characters into completely new, different characters. I'm calling y'all out. Y'all motherfuckers will headcanon a character that's nothing like you and then make that nigga just like you, which changes their character entirely. Don't worry, it's okay though. I just know.
Hey, it's one of my favorite logical fallacies. Whataboutism.
By that logic, whitewashing shouldn't matter, because people can come up with worse shit.
Remember that one bigot dickhead cop from Detroit Become Human? Niggas made him the partner of the new Connor and also like a tsundere love interest. This is a bigot. This is a robo-racist who probably is homophobic. What were y'all doing?
Yeah, How dare people make headcanons where they try to redeem and then humanize bigoted characters? Don't they know that love and compassion are the tools of the devil?
Anyways, people love calling this blackwashing, but that's not a thing, like, at all. It does not exist.
No, you retard. The fact we're even having this discussion, that he even made this video, that Sakura has been edited to be black while he's denying it, is proof of its existence.
This would be like if somebody called me a commentator and I responded to them by going, well, the term commentator doesn't even exist. It's like not a thing at all.
First off, again, this is just an example of someone making something in retaliation of something else. Blackwashing? That doesn't even sound right.
Here's the thing, Joey. I don't really give a shit if a term doesn't sound right to you. That has no bearing on whether or not it exists as a concept.
I mean, the KKK and slavers didn't think black people having rights sounded right, and certainly didn't take them seriously.
It was obviously derived from the term whitewashing, which, if you did know, is the changing of a character's race from something ethnic and flavorless to white. And that's just not good for nobody.
First off, nice job accidentally saying that ethnic characters are, quote, flavorless.
If you did know, is the changing of a character's race from something ethnic and flavorless to
Looks like somebody didn't give their video a once-over before uploading it to YouTube. Second off, this has to be the most racist fucking shit I've ever heard in a video. My god, Joey doesn't really seem to have a problem with saying all of this vile shit about white people, does he?
And obviously now the meaning has been updated to accommodate for the coloring of a darker skinned character lighter than what they're supposed to be, which is also not good for nobody. I got a confession, y'all niggas say I never missed any harder than this video. This video is almost 2-3 years old, but if I did miss the point more harder, I wouldn't know what this was. Obviously you can tell from the thumbnail I was saying that nobody was whitewashing Nessa, which is wrong. That's not right at all. People were drawing her light as fuck for no reason.
I'm sorry, didn't you say earlier that people shouldn't worry about blackwashing because the artists committing it aren't actually changing the canonical race of the characters involved?
Therefore, over the years, we've made headcanons and AUs of these characters where they are black. Notice I said the headcanon and AU. Contrary to popular belief, we don't actually believe these characters are black. I know Piccolo's a fucking Namekian. Everyone knows Piccolo's a Namekian. We just like to think, what if?
How are you now going to criticize the whitewashing of Nessa if the artists committing it also aren't canonically changing the race of her character?
This is just him pretending to offer a nuanced take, but having nothing of actual nuance, all to deny a blatant truth that's inconvenient for his hypocrisy.
I completely missed the point about the erasure of dark skin representation and how that's no good for nobody. Live and learn. Sometimes you have good friends that teach you. Love you, Thuman. Now, some of you probably think you got me in a little gotcha moment. Oh, you know, you call my ass red-handed, caught in 4K. You didn't. Settle down. You're predictable? And I know what you're gonna say. Well, white characters are getting recasted as non-white people more and more these days. And you'd probably call a black person playing a role originally casted as a white person blackwashing as you would for these edits. Well, the difference between a black person playing a role originally a white person did and a white person playing a role originally a black person did is reasoning and erasure.
Are you seriously trying to argue that fans drawing light-skinned fan art of Nessa is suddenly going to convince Nintendo or any other video game developers to stop putting dark-skinned characters in their video games? What kind of crack are you smoking? And where can I get some?
No video game executive or any kind of creative executive in their right mind is going to stop putting dark-skinned characters in their media, or worse, whitewash said dark-skinned characters in their media, just because some fans on Twitter drew some light-skinned art of those characters. If you're going to claim that this goofy-ass causation exists, then you're gonna need to prove that it exists. This would be like me saying, ZOMG guys, if I call Veridis Joey a nigger, then Jim Crow laws are going to come back, and lynching is going to be legal again. And before somebody argues that that's not what Joey is saying, there would be no reason for him to bring up erasure as an argument against whitewashed fan art if he didn't think that the people who were whitewashing Nessa in their fan art were contributing to the erasure of dark-skinned characters in canonical media.
No matter how many originally white roles taken by non-black people happen, they're still going to be the dominant party in representation and in real life, like they have been for centuries.
So let me give Joey this hypothetical. Say that an African movie director is making a film about a black military commander and he decides to cast a white actor to play the character. Would he be upset by this creative decision? He shouldn't be, because black people in African media would still be, quote, the dominant party in representation. But something tells me he wouldn't agree with what the director did.
But if you take the role from a black person or from another person of color, you are comparatively taking what little representation we have in the first place.
Man, it's a good thing I don't support blackwashing nor whitewashing, or else this argument might actually apply to me.
When it comes for reasoning, you have to think, is there a reason why this character is white in the first place? Probably not. They're just white. The story has nothing to do with them being white. But most of the time, black roles are made for black people to tell black stories or to tell stories that black people need to be in.
Don't you just love it when Joey makes an assertion and then doesn't back it up with any evidence? I know I sure do.
What specifically about Miles Morales makes him black? Is it just his skin tone that makes him a black character? And why doesn't that standard apply to white characters? Is it the music Miles listens to?
Is it that his uncle is a criminal? Is it that he intentionally tries to drop out of his high-class private school so that he can go back to the hood where he feels he belongs? Because that was a huge plot point in the Into the Spider-Verse movie. And I'm not exactly sure that's the kind of messaging you want to be pushing in your video, Joey.
I'll take stereotyping your own race for 100, please.
Last but not least, Miles Morales is mixed, not black. How exactly is his story black? Don't Hispanic people have just as much of a right to claim him as their own?
Whenever a black edit is made and posted, in the replies, I see this infamous and, not gonna lie, kind of funny picture of a white Black Panther. And this image essentially is the whole, but what if the roles were reversed card? And essentially is a physical representation of niggas missing the point. If you want them reversed so bad, how about you go through 200 years of slavery, decades of segregation, years of systematic oppression, gentrification, and mass incarceration and imprisonment. If not, shut the fuck up talking to me. Otherwise, the roles cannot be reversed.
It's whitewashing if you draw Black Panther white, even though it isn't canonically changing his race. But blackwashing apparently isn't a thing, because the artists aren't canonically changing the race. But hold on, because it's whitewashing to draw Nessa lighter than she is, when it isn't changing her canonical race. Where the fuck is the consistency? And why is he bringing up slavery, mass incarceration, and Jim Crow laws in a video about why it isn't wrong for black artists to blackwash anime characters?
If you're gonna play that card, Joey, then it's time for you to receive a little history lesson.
Black people are not the only race of people to have been the victims of slavery and general oppression. White people were once enslaved by the Barbary pirates in the early 18th century.
Black people sold other black people, like the Dahomey tribe, but we're not going to accurately portray that part of black history in our media.
Japanese Americans were forced into internment camps during World War II. Irish people were barred from applying for certain jobs in early 20th century America, so much so that Irish need not apply became a widely used slogan. Hispanic farm workers were exploited by greedy plantation owners in the mid-20th century. So much so that they were one of the main driving forces of the civil rights movement. Cesar Chavez, anybody?
Why does the last 200 years matter in a discussion on blackwashing? Why not include all groups who have been oppressed? You don't see Native Americans demanding representation in an animation media, not even from their fucking continent, let alone to do with their people.
How about instead of hiding behind shit that has been resolved for decades, if not centuries, you argue against the points that people are making, you fucking asshole?
If your rebuttal is get over slavery, everything's not about race. No, everything is about race, and everything will always be about race. Shut the fuck up talking to me. Shut up, lower your tone like shit.
Huh. I could have sworn I've heard another group of people make that exact same point. But whom? I recall them wearing pointy hats and burning crosses on people's yards. But their name escapes me.
Black Panther is a character made for black people that has cultural significance.
Who wants to tell Joey that Black Panther was created by a white Jew?
Do white people have like a cultural superhero? If you say Captain America, I'm teleporting to your house and knocking the piss out you.
That sucks to hear, because Captain America is the cultural counterpart to Black Panther.
Thing is, people bring up the counter argument, well, why don't you make your own characters instead of changing the race of existing ones? And to clarify, number one, again, we aren't changing the races of these characters. These are headcanons and AUs.
And yet when white people do the exact same thing, you get pissy about it and complain about erasure. Go figure.
And number two, that's valid. I mean, if not for the fact that you can do both of those things at the same time, well, it's not hurting anyone, because these edits hurt literally no one. It isn't like these characters are being officially recast or retconned as black ones.
Wouldn't this logic apply to whitewashed artwork? If it isn't canonically changing the character, where's the harm? The counter to every single one of his arguments thus far is just fairly applying the standard.
Just edits, and they're not bad ones either. The counters are usually crude, bad looking, crusty, ugly.
Hey, another one of my favorite logical fallacies has made an appearance. Cherry picking. Also, what the hell do the quality of the edits have to do with the argument being made here?
And that's because the messages behind these two are very different. One's clearly positive and with love, while the other is within malice or it comes off as combative and misses the point.
Yeah, but these edits, ain't thought you ate. Give me that fucking plate.
Well, Joey, I happen to think that both of those things are malicious and combative, and you haven't really made any valid arguments that have made me change my mind about that. Saying, but black people were oppressed and have less representation than white people, does not make the racist action any less racist. As I've said time and time again throughout this video, if it's wrong for white people to do it, then it should be wrong for black people to do it.
Also funny, someone made a Nagatoro edit like this, but like, she's not black. We do not claim y'all tan line light skins. Please stay away.
But we can and will claim mixed race characters like Miles Morales.
Most of the time, black roles are made for black people to tell black stories or to tell stories that black people need to be in.
Consistency! You suck at it!
I'm about to dance this shit dry.
Another problem you'll hear people bring up is the whole fixing terminology. What I'm referring to is when some people will do one of these edits or drawings, they refer to it as fixing it. And I ain't gonna cap, this is flawed on both sides. On one side, you have some people actually seeing this as fixed or but better, which obviously pushes the narrative that that is what everyone thinks.
Joey, I would believe that if it weren't for the fact that earlier in your video, you defended canonical blackwashing by arguing that white people still have the majority of representation in our media. And that if fans draw Nessa with lighter skin than she actually has in the Pokemon games, they're contributing to the erasure of dark-skinned characters in our media.
Some of you probably think you got me in a little gotcha moment. Oh, you know, you caught my ass red-handed caught in 4K. You didn't. Settle down. You're predictable, and I know what you're gonna say. Well, white characters are getting recasted as non-white people more and more these days. And you probably call a black person playing a role originally casted as a white person blackwashing as you would for these edits. Well, the difference between a black person playing a role originally a white person did and a white person playing a role originally a black person did is reasoning and erasure. No matter how many originally white roles taken by non-black people happen, they're still gonna be the dominant party in representation and in real life, like they have been for centuries. But if you take the role from a black person or from another person of color, you are comparatively taking what little representation we have in the first place. And when it comes to reasoning, you have to think, is there a reason why this character is white in the first place? Probably not. They're just white. The story has nothing to do with them being white. But most of the time, black roles are made for black people to tell black stories or to tell stories that black people need to be in.
This makes me think that the real reason you dislike people who say they fixed certain characters with their edits is because they're wearing their insipid viewpoint on their sleeves.
And on the other, you have people assuming that everyone who makes these edits carries that same mindset, which is assuming that every black person is trying to quote-unquote fix these existing characters by turning them black. And yeah, no.
Okay, then why are these artists making these characters black? If it's because of more representation, 1, there are already plenty of black animated characters that exist that you could make fan art of. 2, why don't you just make your own original black characters instead of just stealing representation from white people? 3, we don't have the right to tell foreign artists, or really any artists, whose race should and shouldn't be represented in their fictional works. If it's because, well, this particular piece of media doesn't have any black characters in it, then, again, why don't you just make original black fan characters for that piece of media? If it's because, well, I can't see myself in this character unless they're also black, then, well, it kinda sounds like a racist thing to do. Again, I really just think that you're distancing yourself from people who claim that they fixed certain characters by making them black, because they make it very hard for you to push the agenda that you both agree with, which is that black representation should be forced into our media at whatever cost.
If you're a part of the minority that unironically thinks this, while putting down their often not white race, that's not right. But assuming everyone else is carrying this mindset too is also wrong. Meanwhile, clearly what they did here was turn Luz from the house, the brown-skinned Dominican American, into a flavorless, undercooked, for lack of a better word, lent leech. It was obviously derived from the term whitewashing, which if you did know is the changing of a character's race from something ethnic and flavorless to white. Now if your rebuttal is get over slavery, everything's not about race. No, everything is about race, and everything will always be about race. Black Panther is a character made for black people that has cultural significance. Do white people have like a cultural superhero? If you say Captain America, I'm teleporting to your house and knocking the piss out you.
Now that is irony.
Like I said, people don't think they're changing their race, they're making their own headcanons.
The people that were whitewashing Nessa weren't canonically changing her race either, but you still got pissy about it. Plus, you defended canonical blackwashing within this fucking video anyways. You even denied that it was a thing that exists.
People love calling this blackwashing, but that's not a thing, like, at all. It does not exist.
So this point of yours means nothing to me.
While that does not cover the small minority we don't claim, it does give the other side another thing to use against us as a whole.
A problem you could have avoided if you just didn't support blackwashing at all, but I digress.
Fixing art? Oh my god. Obviously, the whole fixing thing is just never good to do at all. Through the whole whitewashing Nessa situation, you had people doing what they called fixing art of Nessa that was whitewashed by while making it darker, which only really muddied the waters of who was in the right and who was in the wrong in the situation. Almost all of the people who were on the side of advocating for coloring Nessa with completely dark skin did not find it okay to do this to someone's art, and neither do I. No matter the circumstance, you should never ever edit someone's art.
Oh my god. Did Veridis Joey just say something that makes sense?
Well, I'll be fucked.
And if I hear you call me a hypocrite because you're comparing someone's fan art to studio, like official art,
Shut the fuck up talking to me.
I don't even know what point Joey is trying to make here, so I can't really respond to it.
what you should do is just let them know that they can't color dark skin right, and they maybe should learn how to.
And that's different from editing the art yourself and then claiming you fixed it? How? I mean, let's say that somebody takes your advice and draws Nessa the way she looks in the games. How is the end result any different from somebody editing the art themselves and claiming that it's been fixed? Again, it really seems as though you're distancing yourself from these fixers, not because you disagree with them, but because they're using methods that you don't like. In other words, they're saying the quiet part out loud.
You'll be surprised how many people can't and how many people try to weasel their way out of it. Oh, dark skin isn't just part of my pastel ooh art style. Ever seen a chocolate cake nigga? It go together. Miss me with that Tim Burton black people don't fit in my aesthetic bullshit. You just a lazy ass. It's so obvious how people cannot or do not ever try to color dark skin.
I love this argument. On one hand, if a black artist decides to blackwash a character, then you shouldn't have a problem with it because it's just their headcanon and AU, and it doesn't harm anyone. But if an artist of any other race, hell, this could even be a black artist we're talking about, since it's not like everyone Joey's complaining about here is exclusively non-black, prefers not to draw dark-skinned characters, then Joey will insult you by calling you a lazy ass who's trying to weasel their way out of drawing dark-skinned characters in their works. I know I'm gonna sound like a broken record here, but you cannot defend blackwashing and then get pissy about whitewashing. It's very hypocritical. After all, if a black artist defends their blackwashing by saying, well, I don't know how to draw white characters in my art style, would you honestly defend that position? Something tells me you wouldn't.
It's so obvious how people cannot or do not ever try to color dark skin, and that for sure is because of a lack of dark skin representation in media, which is why people make their own to feel better.
If a lack of black representation in popular media is that big of a problem for you, then why don't you create some original media that stars black characters? Eric July did that with ISOM, but I don't see you doing anything. You could also just link us to original works with black characters in some of your videos, or even make entire videos promoting those IPs. Again, these are all pragmatic solutions to bringing more black representation in our media. But Joey isn't engaging in them because he's a race-hustling grifter. If he actually addresses the problem of there not being enough black characters in media, then how is he supposed to keep bitching that there aren't enough black characters in media?
I don't know if you can see the correlation, but all of this is connected. I'm not just putting these things together that don't make sense to make it make sense. These are all correlated.
I'm gonna press X to doubt on that one, nigga. I haven't seen a video this conspiratorial since the one where Ponder Sprocket accused Akumu of trying to dock Slimmers.
If you can't get a source or reference for your claims, the second best thing in commentary is just to make shit up as you go along.
My source is that I made it the fuck up.
This is just another clear as day example of why representation matters. If people saw more brown or dark skin representation on the TV, you see it more in people's art because it'd be normalized.
Country roads, take me home to the place I belong. West Virginia, Mountain Mama, take me home. Country roads, take me home to the place I belong. West Virginia, Mountain Mama, take me home. Country roads.
A lot of y'all forget this stuff is taught, and people keep the same beliefs not because they're right, but because the same beliefs are being taught to kids.
What fucking beliefs are those? That black people shouldn't be in any of our media? What the hell are you going on about?
I mean, it's just unfortunate that this is an issue that not a lot of people know or care about.
Do you live on planet Earth? That's a serious question. There is no way that you would say something like that if you've been living on the same planet that I've been living on for any amount of time. Diversity and representation in media has been one of the most prominent debates held by both sides of the culture war for years at this point.
Unfortunately, not every anime wants to be Fire Force or cares about black people, but like it or not, a lot of black people consume anime. And black people, just as other minority groups, consume media just as much as white people. Dark-skinned niggas look at the same shit light-skinned niggas do. So why exactly aren't they in the shit?
I don't know, could it have something to do with the fact that black people don't even make up a percentage of the population of Japan? Or that the majority of animes are not targeted at Western audiences?
There's a difference in having a diverse cast because the world is a diverse place, and delusionally demanding a diverse cast in works that aren't catered to you.
I know to a lot of people representation isn't really a big issue because they don't care, but it is.
But it's not. It's really not. The amount of Hispanic characters that are in the media I consume isn't making my life any better or worse. And I could give a fuck less if more or less Hispanic characters are added in the media I consume.
With the lack of it, people take it into their own hands by making their own in different ways. Just how, say, if you're watching a cartoon and they so happen to not have your personality represented, you just might write a self-insert or headcanon one of the characters to be like you. A lot of us do the same, but with our racial identity. Now, obviously, I'm thankful for all the new stuff we got right now. It's great. But as for the edits, I understand them. And I think they're pretty neat. I think you should too.
No, man. Shit, no, man. I believe you get your ass kicked saying something like that, man.
I'm about to dance this shit dry.
Also, a good amount of y'all thought these were fine, so we ain't gonna let that slide. I ain't forget that shit.
For clarification, I don't exactly care or are offended by these edits, but if you don't have a problem with these, but have a problem with these, that's a problem in itself. Oh, let's use black features for comedy, but when they want to do it for sincerity, there's a problem. Yeah, I ain't forget.
No, What is with the anti-racist black people and stereotyping themselves? What about this is black features? Having long nails and caked up makeup are now black features? Is this how you see your own people? What is this, and how is this hypocritical? Who is even defending these goofy ass edits for you to conflate them to the blackwashing ones? Rambling nonsense and having confidence in that nonsense doesn't make up for your lack of points.
Thank God, we are done with this fucking video. I was this close to running into oncoming traffic. Well guys, I'm Answer Critic, and I'll see you guys.
Now hold your horses, Alex. We've still got to present our final thoughts.
Do we have to? My brain is this close to legitimately developing cancer. Can't we just save ourselves the trouble and cut to the credits?
No way. If you're gonna go after Ephraim for having a shitty final thoughts, it's only fair to hold you to those same fucking standards.
Fine, but you go first. I gotta spend a couple minutes nursing this massive fucking headache I've been suffering since the halfway point of Joey's video.
He started his video with defending blackwashing and Blacktober, with the argument that it isn't canonically changing the race, ignoring the fact that no one is making the argument that those edits canonically change the race, and that he couldn't stay consistent on that standard. You don't like when characters are whitewashed because it takes away representation, but you have no problem taking away the representation of others. You're not as virtuous as you think you are. You're a hypocrite propagating the same behavior you condemn, but instead of just admitting it, you would rather bullshit people for 14 minutes.
The issue I have with Veridis Joey's video is an issue I have with a lot of leftist arguments. It's irrational, hypocritical, and ignores reality in order to push its viewpoint. Joey unironically believes that if Pokemon fans draw whitewashed fan art of Nessa, that this will somehow convince Nintendo to stop putting dark-skinned characters in their future video games. And that the lack of black characters in anime is somehow indicative of how little representation black people have in animation as a whole, while forgetting the teensy little fact that animes are generally made by and targeted towards Japanese people, as well as the fact that there are an abundance of black characters in Western animation and other mediums of storytelling. He'll decry whitewashing because it takes away what little representation minorities have, but he'll turn right around and defend blackwashing, nay, deny it even exists, because white people have the majority of representation in our media. As though the amount of representation any one race receives from media makes a racist act any less racist. He uses the oppression that black people historically suffered from to justify blackwashing, while forgetting that every single group of people on Earth has been oppressed at one point or another. And yet, I don't see any of those other groups clamoring for representation in anime. His video is also chock full of baseless assumptions, logical fallacies, and preposterous claims, such as that nobody knows nor cares about our media not being diverse nor representative. You'd have to be an idiot that was born yesterday to buy some of the wacky shit this nigga says. But you know what? I wouldn't be that upset about this video if it weren't for all of the blatantly racist shit Joey says about white people in it. Some of the insults he slings at white people throughout this video would never be tolerated if the roles were reversed. And that is indicative of a problem that plagues modern day America, which is that it's okay to be openly racist towards white people because oppression. Congratulations, Joey. You are a symbol of just how broken and toxic the state of racial discourse is in this country. I hope you're proud of yourself.
With all of that said, this video is actually pretty good. Of course it isn't! It's fucking terrible! Have you got anything else to add, Akumu? Because I am very much ready to start drinking my memory of this miserable experience away.
After the torture we've put ourselves through just to have to do the same thing over and over again. Sure, we provided different arguments, but all of them boiled down to applying the standards across the fucking board. We're so devoid of that as a society. Yes, this is a we live in a society moment. My normal method of exit is a little too quick and painless, so I'm gonna go with a classic. Because who hasn't been there for you since day one, like good old gravity?
Are you alright, Akumu? He's probably fine. I'm Alex the Critic, and for the love of God, avoid Joey's content like the fucking plague. I'll see you guys next time. Hey, wait a minute. Did Akumu ever disarm the bombs that he set up around my house?